Um, if it's okay with everyone or without objection, we'll move our consent agenda to after our special session with Representative Greg Nance. And so we'll start with introductions and then turn things over to Rep. Nance for a brief presentation, and then we'll have more time for discussion about ferries and all of that. So let's see, how should we do this? Let's start with folks from the Kitsap County area. So who here is from Kitsap County area?
Lindsay, this is Michael Bateman with the City of Poulsbo Engineering Department representing City of Poulsbo. Our Councilman Stern will be on after a little bit, but I'm the alternate, and he will join as soon as he's done with the conflicting meeting that he's wrapping up.
How about Oran?
Yep, Oran Root, Kitsap County Commissioner, District 2. Good to see everybody. I do have City of Bremerton Ferry, and the Southworth Ferry in my district, so it's good to be here.
I love it. Okay, that's the prompt, is your connection to ferries in where you live. Let's see who else is from Kitsap?
I guess I can chime in. I'm John Clausen, Executive Director of Kitsap Transit, who operates some ferries, so I guess that might be my connection as well.
Thanks, Ed.
Yeah, Ed Coviello, PRTPO coordinator, work for John Transit.
And Ed, do we have anyone from the public in the room officially?
We do not yet, at least.
All right, last chance for anyone in the Kitsap County, Kitsap Peninsula. All right, moving over to Mason County, or down to Mason County, over to Mason County.
Hi, I'm Dick Taylor, Port of Shelton Commissioner.
Are there ferries in Shelton? I don't think so.
No, nope, we don't even have a marina anymore. So,
but you're on the water, so
yeah. Well, we are on the water, and we are on this board by definition, by law. Ports are included. That's why.
All right.
That's why we're here.
Thank you, Amy.
Hi, Amy Asher. I'm the General Manager of Mason Transit, and we have public transit service that connects to the Kitsap Transit service at their ferry terminal in Bremerton.
Nice. Anyone else from Mason? All right, Jefferson.
Ben Thomas, Port Townsend City Council. I don't know if we have a Jefferson County representative from the county commissioners. We haven't really seen that in a while. Nicole?
Hello, Nicole Gauthier, General Manager of Jefferson Transit. Jefferson Transit makes connections to Washington State ferries at the Port Townsend Ferry Terminal. We also make a connection with both Kitsap Transit Fast Ferry and Washington State Ferry at the Kingston Ferry Terminal. And we make a connection with Kitsap Transit at the North Viking Transit Center, where community members can board a Kitsap Transit bus to make their way down to the Bainbridge Island Ferry Terminal.
Thank you. Anyone else from Jefferson? I'll add that thanks to Jefferson Transit's Kingston Express, you can now get from Port Angeles to Seattle by 9:30 in the morning on a weekday. So that's pretty good. It's earlier than our straight shot bus, which is a little more convenient, but doesn't get you there that early. All right, Clallam County. I see my former city council colleague, Mike French. Go for it.
Hello, Clallam County Commissioner Mike French. What was the prompt, Lindsay?
Your connection to ferries in your jurisdiction.
Oh, great. So in our jurisdiction, we are 1 block away from a private ferry to Victoria, the Black Ball. And of course, Clallam Transit, which I'm a board member, and Lindsay as well, we have a straight shot that goes all the way to the Bainbridge Island ferry from downtown Port Angeles, which is very convenient, as you pointed out.
Thank you. Rachel, you had raised your hand.
Yeah, so I'm also a board member for the Clallam Transit System, but I guess just a personal way connection to the ferry system is being able to use it to get to Seattle is really exciting for me coming from Squim and living here my whole life. So being able to go out and see the world.
Thank you. Wendy.
Hello, I'm Wendy Clark-Getson. I'm working for Jamestown's Clallam Tribe, but back in the day, I would be the project manager for the sensitive environmental documents that would allow fast ferries to enter Rich Passage, and environmental studies for Kingston to put a fast ferry facility there, as well as building the fast ferries themselves, and reconstructing the Bremerton Ferry Terminal. That was quite the body of work in the day, but it kind of established that Kitsap matters, and it's a great way for Clallam County to consider getting to Seattle by using Kitsap Transit's fast ferries. There's plenty of fast ferries now.
Thank you. And we often have other tribes representing. I don't see anyone else. Did we miss any tribal representatives?
No, and Lindsay, Marty let me know that the Skokomish should not be able to be here today.
Thank you. All right. Anyone who didn't have a chance to introduce themselves? And Rep. Nance, maybe we'll turn to you after finishing all of our intros. All right. And everyone knows Thera. All right. We're not missing anyone? Okay. I don't think we have any members of the public, do we?
We do not.
All right, cool. Oh, and so Port Angeles, I think we got included in a Puget Sound regional study of fast ferries, but it doesn't really make sense to run a fast ferry to Port Angeles because it's like it works well when you have 300 people on board all at the same time. And it probably makes more economic sense for us to run the straight shot to meet every Bainbridge Island ferry than it would to do this idea of a fast ferry. But, you know, I pop people's bubbles with that little factoid, and because the ferry is so romantic, people prefer that instead. All right, Rep. Nance, I think you have a sense of who we are. So we represent 4 counties and are mostly government officials across the board and work on regional planning. So of course, given which counties we are, we intersect with the ferries, and that's key for getting to the metropolis on the other side of Puget Sound. And I'll turn it over to you to kind of introduce what you want to share, and then we'll have time for a discussion. Thank you.
Absolutely, Lindsay, thank you. And what a group of powerhouses around the table. You mentioned, I've never heard the phrase before, ferries are romantic. I think that's true. Thank you for saying that. I've also never heard that regional transportation planning is romantic. And I so applaud folks leaning in, because this is the work that, it's not sexy, but this is how we actually build the future of our communities, and it happens right here. I will admit, I'm a member of the House Transportation Committee, really passionate about our portfolio. I had no idea all the good work that was happening locally with counties, with tribes, before a lot of these ideas even get to our committee, even get to the state level. And so in my meeting with Thera over the winter, deeply inspired learning about your work, and realized, look, to be the right kind of partner at the state level, I want to learn a lot more about it. And so my hope today is actually share a little bit, just briefly, kind of what's in our sort of our vantage state level, what's kind of cooking at the state level. And then I would love for this to be more of a discussion and a dialogue, including getting your advice, your feedback about how we can better engage, what parts of the process are most helpful to engage. And then I am one of these hands-on guys where I really love to come actually see work in action. And from planning, how do we move that through the process while finding efficiencies given our overall budget picture in the years ahead. So with that wind up, I operate with three kind of high level principles here. So the work that I'm aiming to do on transportation for our state, it's about number one, fast ferries. Ferries are important to our lifeblood. I love sharing our connection, each of us, to ferries. Second, it's about safe streets. How can each of us get to where we need to be? How do we keep elders and kids and everyone in between safe? And then third, how do we best connect communities, both within our communities and then growing up myself on the Kitsap Peninsula, a lot of the places we want to be can sometimes feel far away. And so that's why the straight shot is so important. That's why our ferries can be so important, is to better connect those communities. I come to you as a lifelong ferry rider. I grew up on Bainbridge Island. My dad was a public defender in the city. For 32 years, he rode the ferry every day. And he rode the bus to get to the ferry every day. That I realized I'm one of the relatively few members of the House that grew up in a semi-rural area that had really outstanding public transportation. A number of my colleagues on the other side of the aisle haven't had outstanding public transportation in some of the communities they grew up in or represent. And so really trying to be a little bit of a bridge builder. And I think the beauty of the Olympic Peninsula and Kitsap Peninsula with rural environments, we've had to be very creative, very industrious, and with excellent, outstanding planning at all levels of government. And so that I see that in spades here. And I think this is a perfect metaphor and symbol for us to help build more connections across the state and to actually get more state dollars flowing into strong regional partnerships. And so this really is a model, and as Thera briefed me more on how we've been working, clearly a place for us to level up and to continue growing. So within our fast ferries, safe streets, connected communities portfolio, one place I'm really focused on is how do we get WSF fully back on its feet? And I know John Clausen, Orrin Root, and our Kitsap friends have heard me give our spiel. Look, we took a tumble in 2020 with COVID, with the retirements, with years of deferred maintenance reaching a $250 million level of maintenance we know we should have done, but haven't done. Running steel over saltwater is really challenging, even if you're maintaining all your capital assets. We have fallen way, way behind. The tide is turning there. We're working to get back on track and got to do it on the double because every day we face real challenges with our ferries. The beauty about representing Kitsap in the State House, I get to tell the Kitsap Transit Fast Ferries success story. And I am just, it's been remarkable how our local community has really stood up with the help of phenomenal leadership. And John Clausen is a living legend in our neck of the woods and far beyond, doing this great work and pushing through countless obstacles, including reluctant state funding, which is a shame, but beautiful problem solving, team building to make that happen. And Wendy, I haven't had a chance yet to connect to learn more about your work, but so appreciate all you've done to help us get through a couple of those hurdles, from Ridge Passage to the terminal facilities. That is a big deal, and that's part of what we have to do in planning. Is it's hard to anticipate every challenge that emerges, and it's easy for one of those challenges to swamp a project. It takes a perseverance, and it takes a special kind of person to lean into the planning and really put our heads down, work through each challenge, build the right partnerships and teams to move it forward. And I've seen that with both our fast ferries, which is near and dear to my heart, helps our neighbors get to work, to school, to the doctor. That is the spirit that we're going to solve our problems on the horizon as well. And I think about our community coming together to land the RAISE grant for Puget Sound to Pacific and Sound to Olympics Trail. That is a really, really, really big deal. And that's one place where aiming to be a strong state partner here for trailheads at not only our Bainbridge terminal, which we're developing now, but also our Kingston and Bremerton and even Southworth, more connection points so that more folks can actually get into our wonderful communities, can recreate safely, and actually go spend some money to support our small businesses, to support our tribes, to support our regional economies here. That's going to be really, really, really important for us too. And so part of how we make this happen is more of a state vision to match the strong regional planning. And as Commissioner Root and John Clausen are well aware, ran the Mosquito Fleet Act last year, legislation that would dramatically expand the legal authority for regional groups, whether ports, cities, counties, to actually launch passenger-only ferry service to better meet the needs of a community. And Lindsay, I heard you loud and clear that, look, it's not economically feasible in every community. Port Angeles, not probably the right place right now, but perhaps Port Townsend, there's a connector to Kingston or across the water. We know for friends in the San Juans to get around more efficiently, and maybe even connecting the San Juans to Port Townsend more reliably for more connection points up that way. In the South Sound with Vashon, Point Defiance, Burien, and Des Moines, for airport access for neighbors across the West Sound. There's a lot of new connection opportunities. And really, part of the logic here is the price is right. It's $300 million for a new WSF hybrid electric vessel. We're looking at 3 to 5 to 8 million for a new passenger-only ferry. So the state, as we're well aware, very, very cash strapped for the next the next cycles, probably 6 to 8 years, really, really pushing through, treading water from a budgetary perspective. Like many of our counties, like many of our municipalities and ports, we've got to find efficiencies, and passenger-only ferry service gives us a little bit more of that connectivity for a far, far smaller capital outlay. Which also probably gives us more eligibility for federal dollars upcoming too. So thinking a little creatively about how do we generate those fast ferries? How do we have stronger grant applications for more safety improvements and multimodal improvements so that we get more cyclists and pedestrians and walkers along with drivers as well to our next to the woods. And all of this helps to better connect our community. So with that sort of high level framework, my real aim today, I want to hear what's on your mind. I know we're working through a very large new strategic plan, new kind of planning our blueprints going forward. And my open invitation is I want to learn as much as I can here today. And then my conversation with Sarah and Olympia, super eye opener, and it really a moment where we need more Peninsula voices in the Capitol when we're actually creating the state budget and when we're making large-scale, long-term investments. Too often, our Kitsap and Olympic Peninsula communities haven't always had the strongest voice on the Transportation Committee. That is changing, and I want to make that an open invitation where we need our voices in the Capitol, where these are billion-dollar investments, and too often it's I-5 corridor. It's sort of that's where most legislators represent communities on I-5. I'm really trying to help us with an open aperture and a broader perspective here regionally and geographically, because we are doing it the right way in partnership at every level of government, from local to our cities, our counties, the state, the federal government, and our tribal governments coming together right here, and would love to share that success story more widely and then generate the investments and the resources to continue building it out. So with all of that, I'd love to hear what's on your mind. If you have questions, ideas, suggestions, I'm all ears. Thank you.
Thank you, Rep. Nance. Just wanted to ask, do you have any particular goals for outcomes from this conversation before we get started?
I would love to have a better sense of your priorities and your ideas for how the state can better partner, and then plant the seeds so that we've got a great foundation going forward.
Thank you. Feel free to raise your hand. Virtual would be easier to see, but if you're on screen, I see the 9 of us who have our cameras on. Anyone want to start? All right, I will say a few things, but I hope other people have things to say too. When the straight shot started, Port Angeles to Winslow Express bus, it was scheduled to return scheduled with a particular ferry. So if you were on the 7:30 p.m. ferry departing downtown Seattle, the bus would wait for you, which was great. Because that gave you certainty that you weren't going to be like, okay, where am I spending the night in Winslow? And for a lot of bus riders, like the option is just, I'll get a hotel and then pick up the bus in the morning. That's a very expensive option, right? So That was doable because the ferries ran on time. And then starting around 2020, I think the ferry schedule got so messed up that Clallam Transit changed the policy and said that bus leaves at 8:20 p.m. whether or not the 7:30 ferry has gotten there. And so now basically you need to plan, I think it's about an hour and a half ahead of the straight shot departure from the Bainbridge Ferry Terminal to make sure that you're on a ferry that gets you there before the departure time. So the convenience that we had before of knowing if I caught that ferry, I'm getting home, is gone. And it's stressful for folks. I actually recommend people do the Dungeness lines to get to Port Angeles because you can pick that up at King Street Station and it will be on the ferry, your one bus all the way home. Even though it's a little bit more expensive, that I think the peace of mind is better. But like, I had no problem Wednesday going to and from Seattle for a day on the straight shot in downtown ferry. But like I've had some really, like, oh man, like you're gonna miss this if you're waiting for the scheduled ferry. So that is always a challenge for transit, is when we interlink with other transit agencies, who waits, who doesn't, and how much is it headway do we have between connections to make sure that like a late arriving vehicle like gets there for the passengers who are making connections. But I keep wanting to push Clallam Transit to go back to what it was before and say we're going to wait for the 7:30 ferry, but I keep looking at the ferry schedule and saying there's no way like we can do that. It's like the 6:30 ferry ends up being the 7:30 ferry by the time you're at the end of the weekday. So I think like that's one that from a Port Angeles perspective where it's like people infrequently doing that route, but definitely like the straight shot has changed the dynamic of what's the best way to get to the airport. It is no longer find a ride from a friend to get to the SeaTac airport from Port Angeles. Now it is, hey, who can drop me off downtown to catch the straight shot at 7:25 in the morning? And that has changed how the community sees Clallam Transit. It's no longer just the bus that's for poor people whose time doesn't matter. And I'm saying that with intentional sarcasm because I think everyone's time matters. But like now everybody in the community uses the straight shot or knows that it's an option that makes a lot more sense than trying to drive to the airport. And I think that's changing the reputation for Clallam Transit in our community, as well as finally going zero fare to join Jefferson Transit and others, Mason Transit as well. Yeah, so that's my take from like not the like ferry maintenance perspective, but just like the reality of going the bus and ferry connection is that the ferry reliability is absolutely key for catching these very intermittent bus connections, out to the hinterland. Go ahead.
Yeah, I appreciate you leveling there because for too long, reliability wasn't the North Star for WSF. For a few years, I think we lost our way, and we're going through a crisis, and we're basically our head is not in the game the way it needs to be. I want to give Governor Ferguson. He has been laser focused on what investments do we need to get reliability back. Steve Nevy, our new head of WSF, has been laser focused there, and so my hope is that we can get back to that predictability, that reliability, and the idea that, hey, look, the straight shot is going to wait for you, because if you miss that, yeah, you're out hundreds of dollars in a lot of cases trying to make that appointment or get back for dinner time or the things that we value in our lives. It's not fair that folks have to stay over, and it's not fair that folks are out hundreds of dollars, which regrettably that happens virtually every day right now. We've got to do better, and that has been a kind of a clarion call for our team at WSF. And to your broader point, those transit connections are so critical, and for years WSF has not been an active discussant and planner with other networks the way that we should be. And so that is certainly changing, but we've got to get reliability back so that those conversations have real substance, and that we can then rely on one another as we go forward.
Thank you. I see Nicole's hand.
So I would echo everything that Lindsay just said about predictability. In 2022, Jefferson Transit launched the Kingston Express, which runs between Port Townsend and the Kingston Ferry Terminal. We make connections with both Washington State Ferry and Kitsap Transit's Fast Ferry. Earlier this year in May, we added a later evening run so that our community members would have more options as far as getting from Port Townsend into Seattle and then back, or Edmonds, and back in a single day. We're really excited about that. It's our fastest growing run that we offer. And I think much to Clallam Transit's perspective of really kind of changing the way community members feel about Jefferson Transit or think about Jefferson Transit. That's absolutely the case. I've had really a kind of a dream, if you will, of making a connection with Clallam Transit and finding a place where our two, I think, really dynamic services could meet up. This year we were issued a grant for just a kind of a coordination grant. And we worked with Jefferson County on looking at a location where we could possibly make those connections happen. And we discovered the Gateway Visitor Center with the implementation or creation of that new roundabout at the intersection of Highway 19 and 104. It really provides for a safe place for transit agencies to make that type of connection. We're moving forward with that. We finished a site plan. Of course, it's expensive. We're going to be hoping for some grant money to kind of help turn that dream into a reality. But I really do believe that if Clallam Transit and Jefferson Transit can have a place to meet up, we are opening up so many more possibilities for people to navigate the peninsula and leave their cars at home and get to a Washington State Ferry or a Kitsap Transit Fast Ferry with a whole lot of ease and reliability. So that's something that Jefferson Transit has been thinking about. We're also just finishing up our comprehensive operational analysis, where we spent a fair amount of time talking about how do we get folks to leave their cars at our transit center in Port Townsend and take the bus to the Washington State Ferry in Port Townsend. We are looking at increasing our frequency on that route. That should be happening in late September. But again, looking for ways that we can reduce congestion in downtown Port Townsend and still provide reliable service to the Washington State Ferries.
Love it. And what a powerful, thank you for stepping up and meeting the needs of our neighbors. And with those new connections, I mean, I think about everyone who's able to access medical care and job opportunities and get over to class. I mean, every one of those riders, it's a life-changing, life-affirming experience. And that is a really big deal. Thank you for your creativity and your initiative making it happen.
Thank you. I saw Wendy and then Ben.
Thanks, Lindsay. I wanted to say that I really appreciated what you just said about the straight shot, and that there was an institutional shift in the way that the line is being operated right around 2020. When I was putting together the policies, the initial policies and the fare structure, and the opportunities to connect up with Kitsap, I had no idea that it would stray, because since I'm from Kitsap, that's just the only way to do it. You wait for the ferry, you get people on your bus, and you don't drive away with an empty bus. I really hope that we can get back to that, because I have been stung by paying for a Marshall Suite room in Bainbridge Island. That was after begging dispatch to linger for 15 more minutes, and they wouldn't stay for 15 more minutes. So there I am with my son, who had a broken foot, trying to navigate that 24 hours, or I should say 12 hours, to get back to the ferry terminal and take the straight shot home. But I wanted to highlight that I'm having trouble recommending sending people who are going for medical visits on the straight shot from Clallam County because of the unpredictability. and I don't know if we can take a special focus on how to help people get on the ferry and not miss the straight shot. I think that there would be like an increase in service if we saw that happen. Just yesterday, I was trying to help someone navigate through the DOT app. The app is wonderful for what it's take a huge burden off of the guesswork of the schedule, but it doesn't really help knowing how far behind the service is. So you may be thinking you're catching the right ferry, but then you're going to sit in the ferry terminal for 20 minutes and you could have navigated around that delay. The app tells you once the ferry leaves and what's the estimated time of arrival. So you can then call somebody and say, meet me at the Bainbridge Island Ferry Terminal because I'm going to miss the straight shot. But something needs to be the workaround for people who are just coming out of their chemo treatments or, just not in the capacity to deal with stress. And I hope that that's something that we all can work on from both sides of the Puget Sound.
Yeah, Wendy, thank you. And yeah, I want to be clear. There's a clear human cost every delay, every disruption, every cancellation. And I want to level with y'all that the attitude in Olympia for too long was, hey, ferry, this is like some luxurious cruise that millionaires take to get to their vacation homes. And it's like, no, look, this is real people, our neighbors that count on this to access the resources they need to live their life. Look, and we've done a wonderful job starting to really turn the corner on just how we even talk about ferries and how we talk about investments for the peninsulas. Because I think for a long time, it was either you're a tourist or you're a millionaire over there. And that is, when that's the attitude, of course, we're not going to get the investments that we need to actually sustain. So I appreciate you sharing your story. And I'm sorry you had to spend an extra night at the Marshall Suites there instead of getting home to your fam. But we absolutely need to keep building momentum here, because I think when we change that conversation, we then change line items in a budget, which allows us to actually deliver the reliability that we need for folks.
Thank you. I think Ben is next, and then Michael.
Yeah. Hi, Mr. Nance. I think we're still living in a world where there's two types of people that take public transportation and people that don't. I mean, how you classify the ferries as a highway or transit. You can kind of look at it both ways, especially if you're going. Basically, if you're walking on or you're driving on, it's a very different experience, and different people some people won't even ever consider walking on a ferry just because they need the support of their car, or they're starting in a very rural place, ending up in a urban place. You have the ability to start a trip with your car and end it on public transportation. This is something that I've just seen this in action in Port Townsend in particular. A lot of these kind of tourist towns, if you will. All our traffic problems come from tourism, but we depend upon the tourism for the economy to work here. So just the idea of being able to park on the on the Whidbey Island side of Coopville side of our ferry, for instance, and have people come into town. You can access so much of Port Townsend via our transportation system. Thanks, Nicole. And walking, or biking, and then the trail system, just like getting people. But it's hard to get door to door still with public transportation. So I'm just curious if you had some bigger picture thoughts on the multimodal capabilities.
Yeah, council member, thank you. And I like how you're thinking about this too. So I just rode the ferry with John Clausen earlier this week en route to a Congressional Ferry Caucus announcement. And John and I were riffing about how important it is to kind of keep neighbors up to speed about what does that infrastructure actually look like to help people get out of their cars, because there are misconceptions. John and I were at a Kingston Community Advisory Council meeting where he was talking about exactly what you're mentioning. How do we get more cars off the road? The tried and true way, good park and rides. There's reliable operations baked in. It's a safe place to park. You get scooped up, head to the ferry, and then at the end of the day, you're back to your car, drive home. That's, I think, from bridging the rural-urban divide, that's actually a clever way to do it. We know this, and yet at this meeting, a lot of neighbors who actually want more public transit, want more connectivity, weren't yet able to get their head around the fact that we need to be planning this 15 or 20 years in advance because of just the nature of how long it takes to get things funded, to get things built, get things operating. And that's one job I view as representative is, look, I've got to be a better liaison both ways, and including connecting with some of these champions in some of our communities, get them up to speed, help them build the support we're going to need. And then the part where I feel it's easier almost is then taking some of that community support and getting these line items into the transportation budget, where we have now, it's either 2 or 3, I believe, new park and rides that will be funded in part with state support, which will help us in our Kingston community. But you're spot on. Port Townsend, similar challenge. Whidbey, similar challenge. We've got to be a more thoughtful partner at the state level. And I think this is a place where the state can actually help to fund some of the, park and ride, not super sexy, that there's not a big ribbon cutting for that. And yet without it, we are going to suffer from congestion in our main streets. We're going to suffer from more, air pollution and not enough parking and, irritable folks and long delays. We know there's a better model. We can help invest in it. And that's where the state's got to step up there. So that's one place that I'd mention. And then a second is we've got to continue to streamline and make it as easy as possible. And a lot of folks didn't see themselves as, I can't walk on from Kingston or Bremerton onto the fast ferry, and yet they then have a friend or a husband or wife or son or daughter try it out, and all of a sudden, hey, this is easy, this is fun, this is like smooth, this is a great ride. I'm in. And so part of it is seeing is believing, and actually just having more folks experience this. And part of our logic in youth ride free, so if you're 18 or under, you're riding public transit free, is that you actually realize this has come a long way, this is easy, and I build the habit so that now when I'm earning an income, I'm able to chip back into the system and support it with my ridership as well. So coming together, we got to do more, and would love y'all to be submitting, hey, here's a park and ride that would make a real difference for us either in Port Townsend or across in Coopville. And then for the state to actually help write the biggest check there, because we know that funding is frequently the challenge. We can be doing more.
Thank you.
Thank you. Michael, and then John.
Good morning, Representative Nance. Thank you for showing up and listening to us. Really appreciate that. I've got kind of a dual thing here. I work for the city of Poulsbo, and we take an awful lot of part of our city's vitality is a big part of the ferry system, right? We get a lot of people that live here and work in Seattle, and also a lot of people from the Seattle Basin coming through Poulsbo via both ferries, the Kingston and the Bainbridge ferry, and heading to the peninsula and spending money on the way. So that's fantastic, and we love that. Also, I've just been not quite as long as you, but I've been riding the ferries on a motorcycle for a little more than 35 years, not quite 35 years now. And I always end up on the wrong side of the run for some reason. I either live on this side and work in Seattle, or I'm living over in Edmonds now and working for Poulsbo. So I take it every day, and really appreciate the long-standing prioritization of motorcycles. We love it, being able to get priority loading, get through the ticket booths, get up there. It helps a lot with predictability when it comes into winter. Luckily, the ridership is down, but I switched to truck, and price goes up a lot, of course. It's an expensive commute. But also, those Fridays when the ferries are full, it's harder and harder to catch the ferry, so the bike makes a big difference on that. And then also, a couple of times I've tried, I have also had that experience where you get to the other side and there's no bus picking you up. You're like, oh, crap. Had it worked out good, left the car at the office, walked over, took the ferry, went over to Seattle, and then came back on the wrong ferry. And same thing in Kingston. Right now, I believe the ridership isn't enough to have the buses meet the car ferry, but they do meet the passenger-only ferry. So there's one of the times when I thought, oh, I'll just hop on the ferry, get dropped off, and take the bus to work. Yeah, didn't work out so well. But it's great, and we appreciate you being engaged and driving forward for the ferries. I've been watching the decline of the ferries for decades, and seeing as it goes down and down. And the ferry that I'm on now is the ferries that I was riding on the Bainbridge run back in '91, and it was old then. But I can also confirm that the ferry is for sure romantic. it's an important part of my day. I love it. I love seeing the whales when we see them. I have friends that I sit with, actually from the local Port Gamble Slalom tribe, leadership there. And they just see it in the morning, but it's an important break for me between work and home. That little bit of ferry ride makes a big difference to personal attitude, even though it's a long day. So, yeah. Anyway, thanks for working hard to try and improve things for ferries in general.
Absolutely, absolutely, Michael, and I appreciate all you do for City of Poulsbo. I was at a event last night in Poulsbo where, and I'm assuming most of us have been through Poulsbo. Wonderfully charming town. Also has a parking challenge downtown.
Indeed.
Where,
Yeah.
I had an evening event. I ended up circling the lot a bunch, as
Yep.
did many of us. One of the challenges is we almost accept that, hey, we're gonna have a bunch of traffic because that's what it takes to bring folks here to spend money downtown
Right.
and on our waterfront. And really, that's an example where a 70-seat or 150-seater passenger only ferry during summertime. There used to be a route from Poulsbo connecting into the city,
Right. Yeah.
a century ago, and we can actually learn from that maritime history and heritage to actually build out a more connected, community going forward. And I think Poulsbo could be a very interesting case for this, to actually bring tourists in and then bring commuters straight out without all those extra miles on Highway 305.
Yeah. Sounds awesome.
Thank you. Before we go to John, Commissioner Root, you had your hand up. It was just a big stack at that moment, but feel free to raise it again. But we'll go to John for now.
Thanks, Lindsay. Rep Nance, first off, thank you for being here. And for the rest of the folks, I think if you have experience and work with the representative, today is a perfect example of his style. What I've learned in the short time that he's been in the House, he is one that wants to learn. He wants to listen, and he wants to participate. And he's been an incredible representative in the short period of time that he's been in the House. And I look for lots more of wonderful, great things. Greg, thank you very much. I appreciate it. The other thing for your representative, I think as we chatted briefly on the ferry the other day, the PRTPO is a great example of collaboration. As you can see here, actually, I think our attendance is probably down a little bit than what it normally is. To do with the weather, but that aside, this group has really worked extremely well together to not only deal with the issues in their individual jurisdictions, but as you can see, to collaborate on how we can support and help each other. So I wanted to at least point that out. The other thing that I wanted to mention more in general, I think you heard a bit of it with discussion of park and rides and the potential connection point for Jefferson Transit with Clown Transit. These are investments, relatively speaking, they're expensive investments, because if you look at the alternatives of adding lane miles and things of that nature, it is extremely cost effective to support these kinds of investments in a transfer center, in a park and ride, and in whatever else that we can collectively do that makes it easier for people to try out the alternatives, try out the public transits. And I would also just kind of keep in the back of your mind, not that there's any upcoming example, well, maybe there will be in Fond du Lac. I know we've been working with Washington State Ferries on some potential improvements at the Southward Terminal and incorporating multimodal facilities. Wendy mentioned earlier the development of the Bremerton Ferry Terminal and the Transit Center. To me, that is a shining example that we should hold high and look at frequently, of how we make it as easy as we can for people to connect between public transportation and the next piece of their commute, which is Washington State Ferries. And then the last thing I wanted to share is that, these $1 million millionaires, I guess, that are traveling their vacations and summer homes is far from the case as it relates here in Kitsap, as well as the rest of the Olympic Peninsula. People to take advantage of these services, this is vital.
Yeah.
It's either vital from the standpoint that this is a way that they can commute without either adding to their family expense or adding to congestion or adding to pollution, however you want to look at it. Those who use the systems to get the medical appointments, which there's a fair number of people to get into Seattle, whether it's for cancer treatment, as I think Wendy mentioned earlier, these services, it may not be as sexy as the light rail at South Transit, but to the individuals, it is equally as important. So I just wanted to share, I know I'm preaching to the choir, and again, I really appreciate your support and certainly your participation and willingness to understand, learn, and advocate for us in Olympia. So thank you.
John, thank you. And you've been a model partner every step. So appreciate your decades of leadership for us. That's part of what I think is romantic about the work we do in planning together is we're handing a baton off that we will enjoy very few of, some of the fruits, but very few compared to those that come long, long after us. And that I think is the romantic part of planning and doing it as a team so that we all benefit. And John, you've been the model of that since literally before I was born. And so I immensely appreciate you.
I don't know that that's a compliment, Greg, but thank you.
It is high compliment, John.
Yeah, it is. All right. Since Commissioner Root had his hand up earlier, I'll go to, is it Oran or Oran?
It's Oren, yes.
I keep saying it wrong. I'm so sorry. Oren, and then Nicholas, and then I'll see if anyone else wants to speak for the first time before circling back to Wendy.
Well, I thank you very much for clarifying that. It's an honor to be here, and I'll tell you what, everything that the legend John Clausen had said was kind of what I was going to say, but he is obviously has the foundation and experience here to speak upon, especially right here in Kitsap County. Representative Nance is absolutely, I'm just going to double down on that. He has been a champion of our Kitsap Peninsula and our Puget Sound region when it comes to ferry service, both Washington State Ferry and the passenger fast ferry. So thank you, Representative Nance. We've met a couple times in Olympia. So watching you beat your drum on that and really looking at the momentum we got with the mosquito fleet, House Bill 1923, bringing back that traditional economic route throughout our Puget Sound only makes sense to us. And hopefully we get some more traction on that here in upcoming sessions. I got to say that colleagues across the Puget Sound, everybody here has a passion for their jurisdictions, has a passion for their families, has a passion for their economic development. And I really enjoy listening to everybody speak about this. On the peninsula with 260 miles plus of shoreline, 7 ferry terminals, I look at it as this is our way of life. This is our I-5 corridor for Kitsap County. And for everybody else just kind of falls in on that. That's exactly what it is. And our cars are on the water, vice having them on I-5 in the congestion of traffic and all that. So I appreciate everyone being here on that. As Kitsap County is divided in 3 different districts, I'm the one here representing all the districts from Point all the way down to the Southwood Ferry Terminal. So looking at that and looking at our economic development, our citizens trying to get to and from, as Representative Nance has already stated, I want to restate that because we times out by 3 or 4 when we come to our population in Kitsap County, and looking at the medical facilities that we have here on the peninsula versus what they have on the east side of the Puget Sound is very critical for our citizens and for our neighbors. We know this. Again, John said it. I'm preaching to the choir. but we're putting it out there because it represents everybody here. It's not just us. That's including school, that's including work, major corporations. Bringing that funding back into our county is very important. I wanted to mention something that John has been working Kitsap Trans has been working very hard on, and we had an opportunity to ride on a hydrofoil, which was very interesting to me, both in the economy of energy and the economy of our shorelines. It was really kind of neat to watch that and feel that and look at that and go, wow, there's a potential here. The innovation of looking forward, even though we're having the issues we're having now, and we're trying to work that, hence why we're here, to get the funding to get these full-time services back to each and every one of our locations is key. But with Kitsap Transit's vision, looking forward and going, what's better, what's more economic, and what can we do? Is there anything out there? And I'll tell you, John's been, and Kitsap Transit's been really looking at that. So I don't want that to go by the wayside. I want you to know that, and I'm sure you are, because you're immersed in all of this with us, especially being here. So, you know, a basic transportation node to an advanced transportation node. This is our I-5 corridor. So I appreciate everything that everybody here is trying to do, and let's continue doing that. So thank you.
Commissioner, thank you. And, you know, in your relatively short time on commission, deeply appreciate how you've stepped up, learned the issues, and then going about for us locally. The Commissioner Root and I, we represent different parties, but I so appreciate how you've been a phenomenal advocate for public transit. And I think that's where we need to go, man. This should not be a partisan thing. And I appreciate thoughtful conservative voices pushing us to be more efficient, more effective, because that's what it's going to take to get this next level. And your partnership, you coming down to the Capitol and advocating, that was really special. We had, I think, probably 12 Democrats and then Orrin, and so appreciate that we need, this should not be a partisan thing, and you're helping us really spread that word in a powerful way.
Thanks for saying that, Representative. I really appreciate that. It is. We're all in this together. We're all families. Amen. We're all community members. So thanks for saying that.
100%. Orrin, thank you.
Thank you. Nicholas and then Thera.
Yeah, morning, folks. Thank you. I'm an alternate for Rachel, so I didn't really plan on taking any airspace, but I didn't really hear, I think, anyone mention anything about just emergency services, emergency response when it comes to outreach to the peninsula. You know, even recently with Hood Canal Bridge having issues that needed to be closed by tugboats, just recently for us, we got notice of sale of washed-out property off South Point Road. That was a ferry terminal while the Hood Canal Bridge was being constructed. So anyway, I just wanted to put a quick plug in. You know, when earthquakes happen, typically waterways don't get damaged, right? And when roads get damaged, you'll see a lot of focus on the interstate, you know, the I-5 corridor and other routes, maybe over the mountains. So the ferries or access to those terminals in emergency situations is just something I wanted to put a quick plug in. So thank you.
Nicholas, great point. We had 32 folks testify on behalf of the Mosquito Fleet Act. I was really heartened that 2 or 3 of those folks represented emergency response, like Vashon Prepares, Bainbridge Island Fire, Central Kitsap Fire Rescue. And in the course of their testimony, I saw heads nodding around the committee table that usually don't nod when we're talking about ferries. You were spot on. A lot of the work that I work on, it's wildfire prevention and mitigation. And that's really a place where we have a host of hazards ranging from earthquakes to tsunamis, wildfires, extreme heat and droughts. You name it. There are a number of risk factors. We've got to be thoughtful in our planning around that. And yeah, I think passenger only ferry access to get personnel both on and off is going to be very, very important. And then doing it in a collaborative fashion, because you were spot on that a lot of the resourcing and state assets have been dedicated to the I-5 corridor. We need to be thoughtful around the peninsula and really come with a game plan that I look forward to going to bat for.
Thank you. Thera, are you our last comment?
Fantastic. And now you guys can see why I was so excited when I got to meet with him and he was interested in coming to talk with you all. So thank you so much for coming to talk with us, Representative Nance. One of the things that we do every year is we put together a legislative folio where we try to identify some things that we want to bring, raise issues or bring to the attention of all of our delegates. And one of the things we've sort of, I'll just say for me, that I've struggled with in this is we want to make specific recommendations, instead of just saying we've got a problem. This is a board that wants to be part of solving the problem, and so what are some things that as we're going forward, either in our work program or as legislative measures that we can point to, that we might call out specifically in these folios or in our work program that would actually have meaning and value. We don't have money, but we've got an amazing table and really dedicated policymakers. So do you have any ideas of some examples of things that are real and meaningful next steps that this board could lean into and throw its weight behind that would actually make a difference instead of just saying, we've got a problem? What could a group like this do that would support what you're doing on your end?
Yeah, so number one, I'm so delighted to be here. So this invitation means a lot to me. I've got 2+ pages of notes already and counting. What we're doing right now is extraordinarily valuable because what I'm hearing is folks from across different necks of the woods getting together. We're finding common ground where this is a place that we have a shared interest in working for solutions. That is immensely important and powerful for your representative to be able to go to bat for you. It really helps that this is a true priority. Hear a variety of benefits of unlocking this this priority of the solution. Because once we have a clear problem statement and we have a number of folks signing on of, hey, here's the solution we think can help us move forward, it's then comparatively straightforward. We're talking mainly in the 23rd, 24th, and 26th, a little of the 35th legislative districts. We think as a team. There are 8 folks representing those districts in the House. I think, are personal friends. We're strong professional colleagues. We get along real well, and we like to co-sign each other's requests. And so just by having a sense of here are lead priorities for us, I am very, very happy to take point on that, saying, look, guys, here's the top 5 from our Peninsula communities. Let's take a big swing here and let's make the big ask. Work closely with our budget writing team on transportation, on capital, and on operations for the state. And we know that we have underinvested systematically in our Peninsula communities 50+ years. And our Peninsula communities are resilient. These are strong people that we've got some pride here. We're hard workers. We care about each other. It's a beautiful place. The state's got to help us out a little bit here after 50+ years of underinvestment. And I would love for y'all to lead the charge there. What are those needs? And I'm hearing a number of those today. And I want to be crystal clear that, look, the state's got to step up. We need a Hood Canal Bridge that is 100% reliable. That will mean redevelopment. That will mean state and federal dollars. Already working that with the Department of Defense as we're thinking about a more national security friendly base setup for Naval Base Kitsap. A bridge redesign is part of that. I serve on Hood Canal Coordinating Council. From a salmon recovery perspective, we need a new bridge where predation isn't so prominent at those hotspots on the bridge. We know that Puget Sound to Pacific and Sound to Olympic trails, that can be a really strong economic corridor. Let's continue state dollars getting that done. I love hearing more about the Straight Shot and the Kingston Express. These are phenomenal deals that if WSF is a stronger partner, they're going to be even more valuable for us. And so I've got a couple field notes here, which was my real goal. But I would also love to have that 1-pager or 5-pager that we can then run and say, look, these are all critical priorities. Let's get these funded in the 2026 budget so that we can get dollars flowing into our communities and really get these key priorities built. There's a ton of economic development we're going to unlock with this, and we're also going to just better care for our neighbors, better care for our families. And that really is the name of the game at the end of the day. So would love your help. This is a great first step in that. And again, just honored to be here. And I'd love, if you're willing to have a legislative guest in the future to drop back in and keep learning too.
Thank you. You are always welcome. So yes.
Super.
Please.
Hey.
Wendy, go ahead. And we're a little over time, but without objection, we'll go to Wendy and then we'll make it up with some of the boring stuff later in the meeting.
Yeah, thank you. I realized I was circling back around with one more comment based on what I heard, but Representative Nance, I really appreciate you being here today. And I wanted to extend an invitation to always think about Jamestown Slalom Tribe as a helpful partner. Jamestown has the Scenic Overlook, which is a mighty good transit hub on the edge of Squim Bay. And we are hoping to reinvent it, make it better. We recently had connections with Greyhound, which lost the bid in the Dungeness line. So we're looking forward to meeting the new partner producing the Dungeness line's route. And just, you know, there's a lot of mix and match of funds that we'd like to see preserved in the legislature in tough times, funds that can help with Jefferson Transit and Clallam Transit to build that multimodal center. But the tribe has its own type of funds, and we're very willing to combine those to build the best transfer center ever to get people where they need to be in Seattle or Kingston. Thank you.
Wonderful. And I'd love to actually come see Scenic Overlook, learn more about the space. Y'all have been a phenomenal partner on salmon recovery, on opiate treatment, on outdoor recreation, on youth mental health. My thanks to the tribe. Y'all have been phenomenal partners on all of the above, and would love to get state dollars to help accelerate this project, because we need more connectivity on the peninsula, no doubt about it. And if we've got some land and some wherewithal, would love to make it happen. Thank you.
Thank you. Representative Nance, thank you so much for joining us. You are, of course, welcome to stay, but we imagine you have something better to do with the next hour, but feel free.
I really appreciate y'all. Thank you. Thank you so much. Yeah.
Thank you. All right, we will move to our agenda and consent calendar. I apologize. I probably should have done approval of the agenda at the top of the meeting, since we're now halfway through the meeting. Without objection, the agenda is you know, what's presented with with one of the amendments in the consent calendar. So we'll get to that momentarily. The consent calendar is minutes from April 18th, acceptance of the 2025 biennial bylaw review findings. And then I apologize, I'm looking at the wrong version of the calendar, the Q3 invoice approval. Is there a motion to approve the consent agenda?
So moved.
Motion from Dick. Is there a second? Second from Ben. Is there any comment on the consent agenda? Any discussion? Any objection to approving those three items in the consent agenda? Hearing no objection, they are approved. All right, we are now on to, sorry, I meant to have two displays and I only have one. The state fiscal year 2024-2025 UPWP Amendment 2. There are you introducing this.
Yep. And I think we can keep some of this pretty quick here. This is the UPWP. This is amending the one that's going to end at the end of June. But since we all met last, PRTPO received some additional funding that enabled us to go ahead and extend that GIS services contract for another year. This is end of biennium money that goes away if it's not spent. And so WashDOT said, looks like you guys could use it. And we said, yes. So that's what this amendment is doing, is amending another $21,400 into the budget. It also then leaves us at a little bit of a position. We might at the end, like Ed and I were just talking, we might on the 27th of June have a little, maybe a couple $1,000s or that are not spent. And we have worked out with the AWC GIS consortium that we could add a few more hours to this. So the money isn't, you know, the opportunity isn't lost. So what this is just amending that so that we can, you know, have everything line up right at the end of the fiscal year. And so happy to answer any questions. Otherwise, it's just a pretty straightforward amendment.
Any questions? Is there a motion to amend the UPWP?
I'll move to amend.
Thanks, Ben. Second.
This is Nicole. I'll second.
Thank you, Nicole. Any more discussion? Any objection to amending the UPWP? If not, it's adopted by unanimous consent. Thank you. All right, approval of the next year's UPWP. Back to Thera.
Yep. And this is, you saw this for first read in April. The only thing I have to share in terms of a change to this, this is again the budget and the work program for the new biennium, so it goes into effect July 1 through June 30th of 2027. We knew going into this new biennium that we needed to update the Human Services Transportation Plan. It's sort of a statutory requirement. We were not sure if we would receive state funding with which to do that. We have now, since it has been confirmed that PRTPO has been awarded $85,000 in state funding with which to do this update, which is huge for us. And so that is, if any of you are going like, that looks like more money than we talked about in April, that's why. So this does include some additional funding for that. And otherwise, this is sort of your basic work program. As we talked about in April, we're sort of leaving this first year of it without too many sort of discretionary things in it, as you will have a new coordinator coming on board and you'll get all in sync. And then you'll pick up probably this time next year, you'll be looking at going like, oh, what are new things that we get to be working on? So that's the UPWP for the upcoming biennium, and happy to answer any questions that anybody might have.
Thank you. There are questions on the new UPWP. All right, is there a motion to approve by the resolution to adopt the next fiscal year, or I'm sorry, the 2026-2027 UPWP and its associated funding agreement with Washshot?
So moved, Mike.
Is there a second?
This is Nicole. I'll second.
Thanks, Mike. Thanks, Nicole. Any further discussion? All right, the motion is to approve the 2026-2027 UPWP. If there's no objection, it's adopted by unanimous consent. Any objection? No, we adopt it. All right. I love it. All right, next up, there's so many SFYs. I'm trying not to skip something. All right. So the lead planning agency agreement between PRTPO and Kitsap Transit.
Yep. And this is kind of a
Thera
1-2.
or
This
John?
is a 1-2. We're going to talk about lead planning agency and then the fiscal agent. As hopefully you all know, Kitsap Transit is your lead planning agency for PRTPO. And that is by an agreement between PRTPO and Kitsap Transit. And so this gets renewed every 2 years with the new biennium. They have an option to say, no, they don't want to do it, but happily they said that they were willing to do this another biennium. So that's what this is. There's no change to the agreement that's been in place for years. But so anyways, that's what this is approving that, and happy to answer any questions, or John could answer any questions too if you have about it.
Thank you. Any questions? Is there a motion to approve the resolution approving the agreement between PRTPO and Kitsap Transit?
So moved.
Thanks, Ben. Is there a second?
Second.
Thanks, Michael. Is there any further discussion? Any objection to approving the agreement with PRTPO and Kitsap Transit? Hearing no objection, that's approved by unanimous consent. Thank you. And now, similar, this is the second punch, PRTPO and Jefferson Transit. Back to Thera.
Yep. This is the fiscal agent agreement. So again, just the way our structure is, Kitsap Transit is your lead planning agency, but Jefferson Transit is your fiscal agent. And so this again is the agreement, same agreement that has been in place, and we're grateful that Jefferson Transit has agreed to be your fiscal agent for at least another biennium. And that's what this is that agreement between PRTPO and Jefferson. So happy to answer any questions. Otherwise, just looking for action.
Thank you. Go ahead.
Is that you, John?
That was me.
Perfect.
Not that I'm in a hurry, but it's imperative that Nicole continues in this role.
Thank you. All right, so is there a motion? All right, any further discussion?
Oh, we have to have a second, I
We
think.
need a second.
Okay, so John, you made a motion to adopt the resolution between PRTPO and Jefferson Transit.
Correct.
All right, is there a second?
I'll second. Warren.
Thank
get that
you.
done.
Thank you.
All right, any further discussion? Any objection to adopting this agreement between PRTPO and Jefferson Transit? Hearing no objection, that is adopted by unanimous consent. Thank you. Adoption of Peninsula RTPO online. Back to Thera.
Yeah, so this is this is the end of a process that started 2 years ago, and we are now at the stage of looking for approval. I'm going to take just a couple of minutes and walk through a few things really fast about this update, and hopefully it'll answer any questions that you might have. And then I would be looking forward and hoping that we'll get approval for this at the end. So let me do this right here. I so rarely give you guys like formal presentations. And hopefully you are you seeing my screen?
Yeah, it looks good, Thera.
Okay, great. So what I wanted to get going here is just this is going to be the this is an update to your regional plan. I just want to give you a quick overview of what it is, what it isn't, and how you're going to work with it going forwards. So for those who were not here 2 years ago, this is an update to a plan that has been in place since it was very first adopted in 1995. These came out as a result of, this is required as part of the Growth Management Act. And this first plan that was adopted in 1995 laid the groundwork and put in place a framework that led to the kind of coordinated planning through the countywide planning policies and comprehensive plans that has been going on for the last 30 years. PRTPO updated that plan in the adoption was in 2015 of that update, and that one you all modernized. You sort of brought the language up to more current concerns, instead of being focused so much on congestion, which is kind of where the original plan was talking about. This one talked instead about safety and reliability and all of that. It also is the first time that the Puget Sound to Pacific trail, a trail from Kingston to La Push, was identified in this plan. At that update, we were starting to incorporate language like for active transportation in here. So it was an important update. It was then updated again in 2019, and this update was adopted right after you all completed your transition as an independent organization from WSDOT. This plan was the first one that incorporated the RTIP, the regional tip, as a source for the project list. This also identified some things that had been in your work program for the last several years, things like EV readiness and federal funding, efficient use of federal funds and things like that. So that was, most of that update was done by WSDOT, I think, in 2018 and 19 while the transition was going on. So this is really what we're looking at now is your first real true update since becoming that independent organization. It pushes the planning horizon out to 2050. So we always maintain a minimum 20-year planning horizon, but it does a whole lot more than that. And so we went into this with your direction. We had some sort of key objectives that we wanted to accomplish. We wanted to modernize the format, bring it up to sort of what we think about for documents in the 21st century. We wanted to better align it with your work program instead of it having be this sort of orphan thing that's stuck out there that you go and look at every so often, but it doesn't really relate to too much else that you're doing. And as part of that, that really means supporting PRTPO and the members. And so we'll talk about that a little bit, about how this might support members better. Still, while we want it to do those things, we do still have some basic RTPO requirements that we have to maintain. Pretty straightforward, simple updates there. And then we also wanted to make sure that you could keep it current over time. So you don't have to every so often stop everything else you're doing for 2 years and go do a big update. We can just keep it updated, keep it current as a part of your ongoing program. Instead of spending so much time planning to plan, it would give you more capacity to actually implement the plan and to do things. So if you hopefully went out and took a look at it, it is hosted on our website. You go right to it. There are basically 3 pillars to this. There's the project list, which you all rolled out really last October, and you will be updating this on an annual basis with the work that you'll do with the RTIP every year. That will just, it's just going to roll right into your work program. And then there's also, I forgot to mention, we are going to convert that to an online format. Right now, it's just a paper document, but we're going to bring that up to the same standard as everything else by this October. The other 2 elements of this, we're not really going to talk about this too much more, but the other 2 elements that are sort of fundamental to this restructuring, we're calling it a policy framework and a planning framework. And the policy framework is sort of the regulatory logistics side of things, whereas the planning framework is really tailored to you and your interest and your needs. So for starters, the policy framework, like I said, this is sort of like the sort, it won't change too much. It's sort of the nuts and bolts of the RTPO plan. We know that people who might come upon this are not planners. So in addition to like the element, we've laid it out so in just a little blurb so people can see what that thing is. And then the content is, like I said, very sort of standard. I think I described it in the briefing memo of we sort of exploded the most recent update and brought out its most relevant parts and put it in here, made it easy for people to find and access. There are a couple of things I want to come back to. We're going to talk about biennial review certifications and the RTP amendment process. That's going to be how you're going to keep it current going forwards. And then we'll also talk about consistency determination right at the end, because your action today will be affecting that. So the other part of that big framework is the planning framework. And this is the aspect of the plan that is sort of a first time for us to do anything like this. We built it in a story map format, and I will try to quit putting like little asterisk, quotation marks around story map. That's a term. It means something in this online world. And because of the support that you have provided to the work program with the GIS consortium and that GIS services support, we've been able to do some really neat things. So this is, as we approach this, we had a few things that we were really trying to accomplish. One of them is that we wanted to make it visually rich. Pictures tell, pictures worth 1,000 words in terms of explaining basic concepts, planning concepts, and also what we've sort of learned over the years is eye candy will pull people in, and then they learn something along the way. We also, in order to eliminate barriers to, just sort of broader access to it, we've tried to keep the planning jargon, the plannerese to a minimum and talk about it, just talk about issues facing the region and things that we want to do in, just real terms that, you might just use, anytime. Because we know that different people have different needs for information, it's presented in such a way that a person could very easily just read it from beginning to end, won't take very long. But for those who want more information on specific things, who want to do the deeper dive, we've got links there. So there are plenty of rabbit holes to go down. For those of you who like to explore rabbit holes, there's links to a lot of different information, resources in it. But if you're just looking for the gist of something, it's easy to stay at that higher level. Earlier, I had said we were trying to come up with something that has greater value for our members. And one of the places where we were able to do that, again, because of the GIS support that you all have provided, is that what the data that you are required to provide about the regional transportation system has prior to now been presented just as tables in a PDF. And by the time that the document was adopted, that data was out of date. Nobody would ever go reference that data for anything. So by making, with this update and going to an online format, we were able to create a data portal that has dynamic data in it that is very, our members, especially the technical advisory committee members, are letting us know what is the kind of information that would be useful to you in here, and making, putting it right there, and it will be refreshed in time, as time goes on. I say it like, oh, we'll push a button and it'll refresh. It won't be quite that simple, but the kind of data that we built it with can be very easily updated and maintained. And so this was, I think, a big improvement over the old document. And then this is what we'll talk about next, the strategic agenda and action plan. You might recall that last fall, I lose track of time, or maybe it's about 18 months ago, we talked about what kind of a role you as an executive board want to play, going forwards. What kind, do you see yourself more as a regulatory role or an active partner in this? And you were very clear and have been really all throughout that you do want to be an effective regional partner actively at the table. And so that's what the strategic agenda and action plan is about. This is, again, built in this online story map format. And this is very much based on your the kinds of issues that you have brought up over the years in your transportation outlook. What you would see, or what you saw, hopefully as you look through here, you'll see these. You'll see like an objective and these concerns. These concerns are those tough topics we started in late 23. Of taking all those issues that had been in your transportation outlooks for the previous 5 years, distilling those down, seeing which ones still matter, what was missing, blending things where we could, and so that's what this is here. And they are. You'll find, there's information here. What's the concern? That's really what you focused on. But in trying to frame this in a positive way, because this is a strategic agenda, we took this concern and we said, well, what is the objective that we want to do? We want to improve Hood Canal Bridge operations in this particular case. And so this gives you the context for that. And so all told, we had 20 issues that came forward that are sort of embodied in this strategic agenda. Half a dozen of them are ones that we did deep dives on over the past year. Got a little bit more context, a little bit more framework and clarity, but the other ones didn't go away. And a lot of those other ones are things that you've actually been incorporating into your work program over the years. Some others we haven't. These are not quite as fleshed out as the big six are, but they're all in there and can change in the future as conditions change. The other part of this strategic agenda and action plan, though, is the action plan part of it, because again, you said you wanted to be actively involved. We don't have a lot of money, but you got an amazing table and people want to come to your table and talk with you. And so what these action items are meaningful things that you can do despite not having much money to do it with, that sort of get the ball rolling on some of these big issues. You've got a table, you can bring subject matter experts to your table, look at kind of what information is available, what information is needed, who are the champions, and start building that coalition around your table that's going to take to move some of these issues forward. I will be the very first to say there's not a single action in here that's going to solve anything. But in the, as Representative Nance was saying, these things are iterative, they take time, and these are those first steps that are necessary to build momentum on solutions to these things. So that is what these actions are. These are really geared towards things that you can do yourselves as an executive board or director staff to do. They are going to show up in your work program, like in the UPWP. So the thinking is that when you go to build your next UPWP, or maybe in a year when you're doing your mid-biennium update, and you kind of go, oh, we've got a little capacity to do something. You don't have to take it out of here, but this gives you a resource where you can say, this thing right here, this action right here, this activity is really relevant right now because of maybe something that the legislature is doing or something that the opportunity is such that this would be a good time to move it forward. So you can just sort of point to any of these things and say, we want to put these into our work program. We want to highlight them for future funding opportunities. So that's sort of the game plan for how those things would go forward. But again, as I said, none of these are all of these activities are likely to lead to something else. And so how do you keep this whole thing current? And we really designed the whole piece of this, the whole structure of it, so that this piece in particular, you might revisit this part of this RTP more frequently than any other part of it, because this is the piece that is likely maybe to change over time. New issues bubble up, actions have shed new insights, and you've got new ideas for what needs to be done next. You can update this to keep that current. So how do we do that? We've built this in. There's a little 2-pager in the policy framework that talks about how the RTP amendment process works. And so what we've tried to do is define the difference between an administrative update and an amendment. And so the way that this is laid out now is that we're saying that administrative updates are basically housekeeping things, corrections, data refreshes, updates, improvements to the narrative. Maybe we talk about something differently than we used to in the past. And then your strategic agenda and action plan. Because it is not required by 4780, because it is something that you are doing, because it's important to you, as sort of above and beyond the bare minimum requirements. I am sort of this approval today would say, like, yes, we agree that that kind of an update is an administrative update. So then the more substantive updates are amendments, and the amendments maybe changes the policies, or if the vision gets revamped, or things like that would show up in an amendment. And I do know that just down the road, like in this next biennium, most likely, there will be a need to amend the plan, because there is legislation that still hasn't been implemented yet by WSDOT. They're working on it, but there's going to be a new requirement for what's called a multimodal level of service for state facilities. And so what we've done with this update, because WSDOT has not yet completed its version of the multimodal level of service standard for the highways of statewide significance, we are opting to sit tight right now with the standard that's currently in law, and wait and see what WSDOT comes up with, and then decide whether that should apply to the rest of the highway systems, or do we do something different. And so this little piece right here will entail, this is the kind of a thing that is required by state law to be in there, and we're going to change it. So that would be an amendment process. And so how this will play out is going to involve this biennial review process. And that was one of those things I was telling you about early on, that this is something you have to do every 2 years by state law. And so because, again, we're trying to integrate everything and not have just a bunch of weird little pieces hanging out there not connected, we've sort of snap aligned the certification process with this update. And so what it means is that in odd numbered years, this is an odd numbered year, in odd numbered years, that is the year that you would be adopting a new UPWP. We will work with the TAC starting in January, and then we'll come to you in February of those odd numbered years to say, what do you think? How's the RTP looking? Need any changes? Is everything good to go? Or are updates needed? So if no changes are needed, we'll get direction from the board in February saying, no, everything, TAC, and we think everything looks good. Great. We'll come back to you in June with that sort of formal certification statement that you would adopt the same time you would adopt your UPWP. If changes are needed, we would have a sense at that point what kind of changes are needed. And so if it's just a simple administrative change, great, we can go ahead and do that. We can take care of that's a housekeeping thing. If an amendment is needed because it's a substantive change, we will especially working with the TAC, will say, okay, well, how big is this? Is this something we can just kind of get in and do this spring, and do it, and then go through the, have a public process and do a formal amendment in June? Or is this kind of intense? And we can't just sit down and do this. And now, because we know that it's going to be a bigger effort, you can build that right into your UPWP. So that was really important to us, that we link all of this stuff together. And the only way you could do a substantive update to, if it's a substantive amendment, is to build it into your work program. So I think timing wise, this all aligns. And then finally, the last piece I wanted
Sarah,
to.
I apologize for interrupting. Before Mike leaves, if Mike leaves, do we lose quorum?
I think we would.
All right, let's
take action. So all right,
let's take action. Okay,
yeah, so
Mike, are you still here?
I am still here. Yes, I was
All
kind
right.
of worried about that, which is why I said that.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you for saying that before just dropping off.
Yeah.
Tell Emily we apologize that you're late. And
I'll own
is
that.
there a motion to adopt the RTP online? I apologize for the process here.
That's
I'm
okay.
assuming it's not going to be controversial.
I
Ben, I
move
see
to
your
adopt
hand.
this. Yeah.
All right, is there a second?
I second it. This is Wendy Clark.
Thank you.
All right, thank you. Any discussion? Is there any objection to adopting the Peninsula RTP online? Hearing none, we're going to go ahead and adopt that. Legislative work group recruitment, we can deal with later. Do we need action on any of these other things? No, I don't think so.
Nope.
All right, Mike, thank you so much for sticking on a little
Thank you.
moment longer.
Giving us that heads up. Appreciate it.
Very much appreciate that. Thank you, everyone. Have a great rest of your meeting.
Bye. All right, back to Thera and the presentation. Sorry about that.
Oh, no worries at all. Let me pull that back up. Go back and share this. And thank you for catching that, Lindsay. I can't see what's going on in the chat. So what Mike doesn't know is that we just, maybe he does know, hopefully he read this. This is about that consistency review. So state law says that if there are any countywide planning policies in place, the RTP needs to be consistent with those countywide planning policies. And it says that countywide planning policies must be consistent with the RTP. And if you go back to where things were in the early 1990s, it was meant to build this iterative, cooperative, coordinated process. So that's what this consistency is about. There have been guiding principles, that basically were laid down in the 1995 plan. They've morphed, adapted over the years, but in updating them, we have laid them out. These are the principles that we use to evaluate the plans, the countywide planning policies. So pretty basic. These should all look very familiar to you through your own planning processes. What was really important to us is to acknowledge that how these play out in some places is going to be different than how they play out in others. So there's not a one-size-fits-all approach to this. In the guiding principles that you would find online, there's examples, guideline examples of what this might look like, each of these different things. And so what we did is I went through all the countywide planning policies, as has been true for 30 years. We feel like they are still consistent. What consistency means by state law is that the RTP is not incompatible with the countywide planning policies of Clallam, Jefferson, Kitsap, and Mason counties, nor are those countywide planning policies incompatible with the RTP. That is really what consistency means under state law. And so what this update does is says, yeah, we've taken a look at it, and we think that these are all still consistent. We will we'll do the same process. State law does not require that the local comprehensive, that the RTP be consistent with the local comprehensive plans. But it does say PRTPO has a responsibility to go take a look at the local comprehensive plans after they've been through this big update cycle and make sure that everything is still consistent. And so we will, over the next fiscal year, do that process. Most of them are still underway right now, using those same principles. From everything I've seen so far, I do not envision that there will be any inconsistencies in between, in that review. But I did want to just bring this to your attention because it's back there in the background. We don't really look at it except about once every 10 years when the mandated updates are going on with the local agencies. So we just took this opportunity to go ahead and clarify that and in meeting all of our state requirements. So I think that is it. And again, let me stop sharing, and happy to answer, even though you've already taken action on it. Hopefully nobody would rescind your vote after hearing that last little bit, but happy to answer any questions that you might have, or things you might be mulling over about how things will work in the future, or we can move on, whatever's your pleasure. But
Thank you, Thera. Ed, we did just vote on the plan that we just finished the presentation on, just because Commissioner French for Clallam County had to leave and we lost quorum. So we are no longer able to take action, I believe, at this meeting. But we're going to finish the rest of the agenda because we finished all of our action. Ed, it's good to see you. Ben, go ahead.
Yeah, I just in the broader view of this, it's just from a design perspective. I really like how this was done, and you'd say it's eye candy with the photos and stuff, but I think it's a dark chocolate, not Skittles. Like it's just very meaningful, and it's whenever we can tap both sides of our brain at the same time, I think we're doing the right thing. So and I also feel like it's not fluff. They're very just genuine stuff. So thank you.
Thanks, Ben. I put myself on. So there's this distinction between an administrative update and an amendment. Do we have a process for notifying the executive board when we've done administrative updates?
No, but we could certainly put one in. And I think I would look for direction from you all. Like I can think of an administrative update that I can think of 2 administrative updates that I'd like to do as soon as there's the time. One is I'd like to add some more images. My aim before my work is through is to make sure that all 27 members see themselves, basically, find some aspect of their community and the imagery that's presented. And the other thing is I've got because the format is so unique, and even though WashDOT I think has pretty much signed off on it, but still I want to give them a little checklist because they're box checkers, and make it easy for them to find the things that they need to check their boxes. So and again, I would just put that out in the policy framework. So those are 2 things that I can think of. And what I could do, because we're figuring this out as we go, is we can just keep a running tally of what kind of updates. But I think the ones that you all direct will be really obvious. It'd be these little like data refreshes and stuff that you all can be notified about those. Or we could just have a log. What would be easiest for you all? We could also just keep a log on the policy page that says, July 1st, 2025, we've updated the imagery and added this checklist, and it could just be a running log. Would something like that work?
A change
What would
log
work
makes
best?
sense. Yeah, I mean, I think my
Change.
concern is just, like where in the line between administrative update and amendment gets blurry, that we at least know what's been happening to it.
Yeah.
I do really like the model, not just the format as everyone's talked about, but also the process for keeping it current. I mean, I think we're very well positioned to have this not just be a plan that sits on the shelf, but from I think, organizational governance perspective, I want to make sure that if there were concern in the future that, that administrative update really crossed the line, we at least know what's happening to it.
Yeah.
So yeah, a change log page would fulfill my goal.
I've got a placeholder. I've got a couple of placeholder blocks on the policy framework, and I will add that. And the very first thing on it would be add a change log for administrative updates.
All right, thank you. Any other comments, questions? All right, seeing none, we have already voted to adopt the PRTP online. And thank you, Thera, and everyone else who put so much work into that. It's incredible, and it's so nice to see a plan that will move forward and be relevant beyond just its publication date. All right, next up is 2026 Legislative Work Group recruitment. In the past, we've convened a work group. I think a lot of people on this call have been, or in this meeting, have been part of that in the past. Thera, what's your thought on moving this forward?
Well, I can tell you that what we typically do this time every year is ask for volunteers. It's and the purpose of the legislative work group is, for those of you who've been on this, you know, what you're going to do is sort of among yourselves, we'll meet maybe once or twice between now and August, at least once, but maybe twice between now and the 1st of August or early August. Just have a little brainstorming session. What do you think the key issues are, or a theme, or what kind of messages do you think we want to be putting forward? And then what we'll do on our end as staff is sort of work those up. We might email those back to you to take a look at. If we need to meet again, great. If not, great. And what we do is we block that up in sort of a very rough format and take to the full board in August. And that at that time we get direction. Does the board like this? Is this the right approach? So far, that's been, and we usually get really good feedback. And then that lets us go back as staff and refine it and put together a project list with a TAC and get their input. And then the final sort of role for this work group is we like to try to have you put your eyes on this draft before we send it to the board for approval in October. And so that's, it's not a huge time commitment. Each meeting is like, there'd be like one hour meeting, possibly a second 1 hour meeting. And then that last review is typically just done, by email. But it's really important because these are the issues that you, as the PRTPO Executive Board, want to highlight, want to take forward, things that maybe Representative Nance could glom onto and run, and be the champion with the rest of the delegates. So yeah, it's a not a big effort, but it's an important effort, and just looking for volunteers to do that. So I know who to coordinate with going forwards.
Thank you. And this is not just folks who, feel like we have experience with legislative advocacy, but if you're interested in learning more about how to work with the state legislature in doing advocacy and getting bills and budget provisos passed, this is a great way to learn that. So I see Nicole. Is that a comment or a volunteer?
That's a volunteer.
All right. And somebody else raised their hand briefly, but I missed it.
Michael.
Michael. All right. I will join as well.
Okay.
The illustrious John Clausen isn't volunteering yet. All right. There we go. Ed, do you have any room on your plate?
There'll be a chance to talk about broadband.
Are you addressing me or the other end?
You've got your camera on. I was to give you.
I apologize for the delay. The Public Works Board, we're dealing with diversions and sweeps. It affects all our communities. And I feel very badly about being delayed that long. Thanks for your patience, Lindsay and Thera.
No worries. And so is that volunteering for the legislative work group?
If you're not there, you're a volunteer. You're speaking of the Army, right? All volunteers will now breathe.
Okay, I'm gonna pretend that that's a yes. All right, who else? Anyone else here? All right, Amy.
Excellent.
All right. And this is really just for Thera to know who to coordinate with for these, kind of working up the plan for the next meeting of this group, which is August 15th.
Right.
So we'll have a couple meetings in July. So please do try to watch email. I know I'm bad at that too. And then we'll try and get together, and no guarantee that we can find a time that works for everybody. So
Do the best we can.
Yeah, earliest responses probably get prioritized. I'm not sure what Thera's magic is there. And of course, this is not a closed group. So if you decide later, hey, wait, I want to be part of that, please do let Thera know. And then Thera, would you mind like messaging everybody? Because I know some people who've historically been part of this group are not on the meeting
Yeah,
today.
I will do that. I will send a message out to everybody else. Yeah.
Awesome. Thank you. All right. Anything else in the work group? I think we're good there. And then update on the coordinator recruitment and transition plans. Oh my God. All right, go ahead there.
Well, I think the brief description that is part of the agenda is accurate. We have hired a new planner that half of their time is going to be devoted to the PRTPO, and that person she's scheduled to start on the 30th of this month, so just a short time away. We're going to be devoting basically 100% of her time for a while to work with Thera and try to get a good handoff for that period of time. So, and then I would also just add once again that had a very brief conversation with some representative at the DOT and Public Transportation Division, and indicated that there's a high likelihood that we're going to be putting in a request for some supplemental funding to help cover the cost here, and they're acknowledged, and although they haven't given me the go-ahead yet, they certainly have indicated that that is entirely possible. So more to come on that aspect.
Thank you. Thera, when do you sail off into the sunset?
You're on mute there, so you need to there, you need to come off of mute.
It's off of mute so long because I talk so much. Yeah, it's first, I'm not sailing off into the sunset. I'm just sort of reorienting things in my world right now. But as Ed and I have talked, I think you'll continue to see me for at least a couple more months. We're going to sort of bring her on, get her onboarded and up to speed. And as we're, jogging along side by side, we'll sort of hand the baton off. So you'll see her, you'll get to meet her and be working with her this summer. Those of you on the legislative work group will get to be the first to meet her, and then she'll be at the TAC meeting in July, and she'll be back here in August. And probably by September, I'll start, taking more of a step back as she steps in more fully into that role. So my very strong aim is for this to be really successful and for nobody to miss a beat, and that you all just springboard off what you've been doing and just, take it to the next level. So yeah. So yeah, not going anywhere, just needing to do some different stuff right now.
Well, thank you. Thank you, John and Kitsap Transit. This has been incredibly smooth of a transition, given the unicorn that there has been as our coordinator. So thank you. Any other comments? We will go into public comment. I don't think we have anyone from the public. So, yep,
Correct.
Ed's confirmed. All right, public comment is closed. And then member updates. Anyone have any updates? Go ahead and raise your hand, or first person who comes off mute. Michael.
Yeah, I think I'll cue it up for Ed, but Ed, you should tell everybody about Josh's big project leading off and breaking ground.
Help me out here, Michael. So phase 2 and phase 3 of the Johnson Parkway project, which is effectively, though people don't like me to talk about it, a Paulsbo bypass.
Yes, that's right, and the continuation of our long-going project in the Knoll Road corridor that's serving the east side of our town and landing people down at the roundabout that we built, and carrying them up the rest of the way north to Lincoln and on out into the rest of the county, and it provides a little bit of a bypass, but really it's serving the development on the east side of our town,
Right.
and it's been in progress since 1992. when it first showed up in our transportation plan. So we're very excited that this northern phase has broken ground, and we're really excited about the ongoing progress and the funding that we continue to get from all of our funding partners.
I might add, you're all aware of the Highway State Route 305 working group that originally was with the Connect Washington money to identify and prioritize, in part, the project Michael just talked about all the way to Winslow at the ferry boat. My council's calling for a 307 working group, if that might be desirable. It doesn't have any money to back it up at this time, but that 307, what's called Bond Road, that connects off of Highway 3 all the way to the Kingston Ferry is really it's becoming a hot mess. And there needs to be better coordination and see what could be done. There's a lot of individual pieces of development happening, and there's a question of adequate traffic mitigation, etc. Michael, would you add any tone to that?
Oh, I think that's a good reminder. And there was a beginnings of a working group that Rob started on 307 when he was with the county. I think that picking that back up and carrying it forward is a fantastic idea.
And Michael's referring to Rob Gelder. I think most of you knew him as county commissioner, and he's our first city administrator. He started in that position in January. Thank you.
Thank you. John, go ahead.
No, I really didn't have anything. I was just scratching my head. Sorry.
Oh, sorry, you unmuted. All right. I have an update. I'm not running for re-election. I feel like I've done my succession planning because my replacement is running unopposed. So that means it's highly unlikely I will be chair of PRTPO in 2026. I believe Ben, our current vice chair, is also not running for the re-election. So just queuing up that probably at our August 15th meeting, we'll want to start talking about whose arms to twist to be serving on the executive committee for PRTPO.
You got to give us a little hint about where you're headed.
Oh, yeah, this is a volunteer job, man. So like we do this for fun. It's just about, this is our hobby. Not heading anywhere. Yeah. But thanks for thinking.
Yeah, well, it's been great to have you on here. You've been a really big contributor, and welcome.
Thank you. Yeah, I'm not going anywhere fast, and I think Ben's staying on through the rest of the year too. Ben, you unmuted. Did you want to say anything?
Oh, just to say, yeah, through the rest of this year, so we have a few more meetings ahead of us, but yeah, I'll miss this group for sure.
Any other member updates? Well, we did have a conversation with our representative earlier about, interlinking services. It was mostly in response to the ferry schedule, Washington State ferry schedule being late, and then how that affects buses departing. I'd be curious, like, for future conversations, since we're wrapping up now, but how our different transit agencies deal with those kind of interlinks and connections. I know I'll ride from Aberdeen up to Port Angeles, and there's a bus that on paper does not overlap, but apparently it's custom to wait an extra 2 minutes for so like there's a lot of like interconnections that we do. And how do we coordinate those, and what each transit agency's policy is too, because I want to advocate to Clallam Transit, and knowing what Jefferson and Kitsap and Mason do is useful there too. So that might be a fruitful conversation. It could also not be a meeting conversation too, but I just want to float the seed for that.
And Lindsay, if I could piggyback on that, that is actually not quite exactly like that, but that's sort of an action item in this new strategic agenda and action plan of bringing together, all 4 of ours, and then probably also Grays Harbor Transit, because they play such an important role on the southwest side. And thinking about how do we, just working among ourselves, listen to me, the global ourselves, working among ourselves to provide a kind of a service that is just a different kind of a service. It's this long distance intercity bus service that's reliable, and you can plan on it. It's got a schedule, and so yeah, that is definitely something that is on, because you all have been talking about it, is on your radar coming up.
Thank you. All right, member updates, anything further? And I think after this, we've covered our agenda. So going once, going twice. Thank you all. We are adjourned.
Thank you.
Thanks.